Hello, welcome. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God of love and justice. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be back with you to worship and to have this chance to share with you today. It is an absolute joy to be here. And for anyone who has not met me or doesn't know me, I am Reverend Elder Maxwell Rie, and I am based in Edinburgh in Scotland. And I currently serve on the Council of Elders. I bring you greetings from our council and from our moderator, Reverend Elder Cecilia Eggleston. So we're here today and you are moving towards your final service as a worshipping community next week. And together you have taken the courageous decision to close your community as a church and to close well. And it's not easy to get to that place. And it's tough to wrestle with all the decisions that you make along the way, the right things to do. But we know that God is with us and at the heart of all the decisions that we make. And we thank God for this steadfast love and commitment to each and everyone who has ever been through the doors of this church, who has worshipped online or connected in other ways, played a part in Holy Redeemer MCC. And we know that our God goes with us no matter where we are. When I began to think and pray about what I wanted to share today, I had a real sense of the in-between, being in the spaces in between. And this Sunday, we are in the in-between space between the ascension of Jesus last Thursday and Pentecost Sunday, next Sunday. And Jesus met with his disciples several times during the 40 days after his resurrection to instruct them on how to carry out his teachings. And scripture tells us that on the 40th day, he took them to the Mount of Olives, where they watched as he ascended into heaven. And Pentecost, next Sunday, is 50 days after Easter. And it marks the descent and the arrival of the Holy Spirit upon the disciples and the followers of Jesus while they were in Jerusalem celebrating the Feast of Weeks. So we are today literally in the in-between space, that place in between. Before Jesus' ascension, he made it clear that his people would not be abandoned. And that although his physical body would not be with them, that he would be with them in a way that would last forever. And a reading that we had last week, and you may have had this last week from John 14 says, Jesus says, I will ask my parent and they will give you another advocate to be with you forever. This is the Spirit of truth. I will not leave you orphaned. I am coming to you. So today, unlike the disciples, we have the luxury of being able to step back and look at the bigger picture. Because we know the full story. We know what happened. We can join the dots and see the full picture. So what can we learn from this? The message for each of us is the same as it was for the disciples. You will not be orphaned. The Spirit will be with you. No matter where you are going, no matter what road you take, God is always going to be right by your side. And that is an amazing gift, a precious gift, a gift to hold on to and a gift to share with others. But maybe just as important, we can learn from being in the same situation as the disciples, when a promise has been made and we need to wait, the in-between space. We need to be in the in-between space because the in-between space has such a great deal to teach us. As a church community, you are literally, again, in the in-between space. You are preparing to move from a community in this shape and form to something different. Possibly something new and exciting, or maybe re-engaging with something that you've experienced before, or for some of you, maybe the unknown. We all deal with change differently, just as the disciples will have dealt differently with things. For some, change can feel very exciting and a new challenge. For others, this may feel tough and sometimes too tough to bear. And for others, they're a bit more relaxed and they'll just wait and see. So the joy and the challenge in community is that we are all different. And a good community endings offer one that acknowledge this. We do not all have to do things the same way or feel the same way. That's okay. But we do sometimes have to recognize loss of what we've held close to our hearts and loss of something dear to us. And for anyone who has ever experienced the death of a loved one, you will know how difficult that can be. Grief is not easy. In my work as a chaplain at the Children's Hospital in Edinburgh, I deal with a significant amount of grief. Grief due to death, and more commonly, grief due to the loss of the norm, the loss of possibilities, the loss of potential. And when we experience grief because we've experienced love. Without the gift of love, we would not experience the grief that we do. And grief is messy. It's never a linear process. It's not neat and tidy. It's far from neat and tidy. Our emotions and our responses jump around all over the place. Grief can tap into old pain and hurts, open old wounds and bring back old memories and things that we may have put aside many, many years ago. Grief can catch us out. Just as the disciples experienced grief at the death of Jesus, they had him back for 40 days, only for him to go again. They knew he could not stay. In the past, it was really common for grief counsellors to talk about letting go of grief, letting go of painful feelings and moving on. But I think that's a really, really big ask of people, a big ask of anyone to let go. And anyone who has ever tried to do this will know just how hard it is to let go. And in the end, you just feel like you're getting it wrong, or you've not succeeded, or you're doing it the wrong way, or you're trying your best, but it doesn't feel better. But I believe rather than letting go of grief, we learn to grow around it. We learn to accommodate the loss in our everyday lives. And we'll learn to manage it, and we learn how to cope. So we don't need to struggle with the idea and the concept of letting go and moving on. We need to be gentle on ourselves and acknowledge that this loss is there, and in turn, we will be helped to face whatever comes next. So as a community and as individuals, you are in that in-between space. The term liminal space is used to describe a place where there's a state of change or a state of transition, or you're stepping over a threshold, a space between the old and the new. Who remembers the freedom of holidays between years at school? When you finished one year and you had what seemed like a huge vacation time before the next year started. That was an in-between space. Or the space between the sea and the sky when you look out over the water. There's an in-between space there. Sometimes you can tell what is sea, sometimes you can tell what is sky, sometimes it's not clear. And we tend to have a very binary way of thinking. The old and the new, the sky and the sea. But as we have come to have an understanding of gender being open to the non-binary, then we too can also think about this as a liminal space. And what does that have to offer when it's not one thing nor the other? Jesus has ascended and the disciples are waiting. So this week, your church, Holy Redeemer, is open. And after next week, you won't be open. So you are waiting just like the disciples waited on Pentecost. And our reading from John 17 describes Jesus's concern and Jesus's care for his disciples and his friends and his companions as he prays for them. He says, "And now I am no longer in the world, but they are in the world. And I am coming to you, Holy Parent. Protect them in your name that you have given me, so that they may be one as we are one." This is it's an amazing reminder of the power of prayer in the times of change. When we feel things are uncertain or unclear, what do we do? What did Jesus do? Jesus prayed. Prayer can give us the space to work out what will sustain us into the next phase. Knowing that we are one with God and that through the life of Jesus, we are always connected to God, to the outpouring of the Spirit. Jesus requested that God protect the people, and that protection still holds for each of us today. Sometimes we wish we could stay in the in-between space, but circumstances may dictate that that is not possible. But we can learn from the disciples. Each of us carry the light of Christ. Each of us carry the spirit of liberation. Each of us carry the truth of who we are. Each of us are part of the bigger picture. The work that has been done here at Holy Redeemer MCC is the work that you will take out into the wider world. The liberating word, the liberating gospel of Christ that has been shared is the word that you will take into the world. In my home church in Edinburgh, our logo is the dandelion clock. And we talk about sharing seeds of justice and joy. Justice and joy that can come from a bright, vibrant yellow flower that others consider an invasive weed. So the truth of who you are as an LGBTQI people is the truth that you take out into the world every day. Just as the dandelion clock floats on the air and the little bits of it travel with you, they stick on your shoes or your clothes or your skin and they move and the birds carry them, the insects carry them. Each one of you will be a role model for those who need God's love. God's beloved queer folk that are never, ever orphaned. Each one of you are part of the bigger picture, and the bigger picture that goes beyond the wall of this church, or indeed any church. We are a people of God, no matter where we are in the world. We can serve God this day and every day, no matter where we are and how we are connected. So as you look to your place in the future, as you navigate this liminal space, I urge you not to avoid the work of grieving, because the work of grief is good. It's transforming and it's healing. It's essential. It can be personal and it can be collective. And I want to finish this with a quote that takes us back to Easter Day. So as we come to the end of the Easter season, let's just think back to the beginning. Nadia Bolz-Weber, who's a pastor, a theologian, and an author, says, "Our scars and our sorrow will always be part of our story, but they will never be the conclusion of our story." Which means that even when you feel trapped in pain, trapped in your past, trapped in your own story, like it is itself a tomb, know this, that there is no stone that God cannot roll away. The stone has been rolled away and we are liberated by that movement. We are free to be the people that God called us to be. And it's our job to take care of ourselves, each and each other, as we move on from this day to the next. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Amen.